everyone. Pastor Jonathan here with this week's edition of the Weekend Wrap-Up. So glad to have you with us, and our guest today is Miss Kathi Smith. She's our preschool director here at First Middleburg, and it's an honor to have you with me this morning. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So we're going to take some time today to reflect on this past Sunday's message from Pastor Chris, and we're continuing the series, Journey to the Cross, and we're in Luke chapter 20. And it was a great message and another encounter of Jesus and the religious leaders of the day. And so they were trying to trap Jesus. They'd sent spies among his disciples who were trying to trap him with a question, a trick question about taxes. And so Jesus saw right through their attempts to trip him up or to get him to say something controversial. But he answered in ways only he can. And so those who were trying to trap him, the question, he turned it right back on them. And in so doing, he really confounded everyone. And Jesus is sort of the master in those situations, isn't he?
Right.
Yeah. So I'm curious today, though, is there something about the message this past week that stood out to you?
Well, when I have read the verse so many times, Jesus said, then render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's and to God the things that are God, so many times. But when Pastor Chris said that God has authority over all the government, that really stuck to me because, he has authority, and that's why we should submit.
That's right. And Pastor Chris went to great lengths to help us to understand and be reminded that God has given us government for a reason, and it's to protect people. And he establishes that authority for the good of the people. And while we may not agree, as Americans, we may not always agree with those in authority over us, we still have the responsibility to submit to their laws because they're for the good of all of us.
Right.
And so that's not always easy to do, but we're called to do it and to be an example to others. So that's a great point. And really, like what you said, Jesus saw through their question, and he really went to their heart.
Right.
And for all of us, submitting to God and his will and his authority in our life is always a challenge because we want to do things our own way. It's easy to follow God in the things that aren't a struggle for us to obey and to follow, but when push comes to shove, to be willing to submit to God's authority and his will is the greater challenge for us. And one of the quotes Pastor Chris gave on Sunday was this. He said, most people want Jesus as a consultant rather than a king. And that really hit home with me because that's the bottom line. We want to consult Jesus, and sometimes we feel like we can take his advice or leave it. And it's not really advice, it's really instruction meant for our good. And so I don't know about you, but there are times on a daily basis where I'm confronted, I have to make a choice and a decision. Am I going to obey God, or am I going to just think, well, I appreciate his input, and then go my own way? And that usually leads me to a really bad place or a place that is out of his will. And so that's a challenge for all of us, to submit and to surrender, but we enjoy his blessings every time that we do. And so I want to encourage you as you listen to the message. If you didn't make it this past week, you can still listen to it online. They're archived there at the church website, fbcmiddleburg.org. And so I encourage you to go back and listen to this week's message. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time. In the meantime, we can continue to pray for those in Louisiana and other places in the southeast that have been affected by a hurricane this week. And we will likely have opportunities to contribute to the recovery efforts there in the coming weeks. So you might want to listen for that. But be praying for them, and be praying for our brothers and sisters in Afghanistan who are under some very real threats over there to their way of life and their freedom to worship. And so be in prayer this week. We look forward to seeing you all again this coming Sunday, and joining us next week as we recap and think back on Pastor Chris's message. Have a great day, everybody.